All right, welcome to another wonderful episode of Throwing the Brick. I'm your host, Jamie Dubuque. I'm here with Areana. Areana, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited. So you came into my peripheral because of the work that you're doing. You're not only are you like an advocate and obviously a role model for women's wrestling, but you're also out there on the front lines of getting out the word about equal pay and paid disparity. So I was really excited to bring you on because this is such a big part of not just being a female athlete, but being a female in general. And, I was just having a conversation with somebody recently about how sometimes women are so hesitant to fight for their own value and worth when it comes to finances. And I'm talking like women who are alphas, right? Who go out there, who are willing to speak up about everything. They're allies, they're advocates for all these other things. But when it comes to fighting for their financial value, it's like they feel like they're lucky to have just been acknowledged at all. So they're not willing to fight for what they deserve.
I believe that the amount of times that we've been suppressed and told that like we're not good enough or that we're not interesting enough to be watched and to be seen and to be heard, I believe that just like buries you in this like little hole, and you just start to curl up. No matter how strong, no matter how, alpha you are, it hurts, like to be told that you're not good enough or that you're not interesting enough. Like I have things to say. I have a brain that I think with and that, I can articulate with. I'm just as interesting as the next person in line, and male, female, whatever you consider yourself, I'm right there with you. I can also be in the conversation. So I believe that no matter how many times you've been knocked down, you have to have that will and that strength to come back and be like, yeah, I deserve this, And I believe that we have those people finally like behind us, because it's, you can't do anything alone, especially things to this maximum, like level. Yeah. You can't do anything alone. It's always got to be, with a group, with a pack. You can't be that lone wolf. You got to have your pack behind you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, like, I think that a lot of people this year, between like the US women's national team for soccer, that's been really front and center in terms of the conversation around the pay gap, and how the US women's national team is more successful than our men's team. And yet there's still a disparity there between pay. Do you think that, like you kind of mentioned, like you kind of curl up in a ball and you start to doubt yourself a little bit. Do you think that there are athletes out there who are afraid to speak up and speak out about the pay disparity between them and their male counterparts?
I do, because it makes the group that they kind of like are, what is the word I'm looking for, that they're kind of showing for, like USA Wrestling, for instance. That's my group that I show out for. The Army, like if I go against all of what they believe, then they're gonna look down on me, and they're gonna be like, oh, she's not grateful about what we give her and stuff. Yep. And it's like, it's hard to do that, because you have to know your self-worth and you have to know like who you're stepping on, and you don't want to like crap where you sleep or crap where you eat type of thing, and it's like, but I got to get what I need, and I have to fight for the people after me and the people next to me. So it's a hard like line to cross. But I think that if you have the conversation in the right way, like not just going outward and I don't know, blasting to social media without having the conversation first, I think that's where people get into trouble.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your wrestling career and experience, about your connection, like you mentioned, like WCAP. So talk to us a little bit about your wrestling background.
I just competed in the Olympic team trials at 53 kilos. It did not go as well as I expected it to go. Man, it was a heartbreaker. But, this past year with COVID and everything, I was able to grow in different areas, you know, and I'm grateful. And it kind of hindered, you know, my ability to wrestle. Like we weren't able to be in our own facilities. We're still not in our own facilities
Right.
at WCAP. And it sucks, you know. I love my room. I love being in that room because it gives me a certain like feel. But
Yeah.
Yeah, we just didn't have like everything that we wanted, right? Like, and you have to work with what you got sometimes. And so we did everything we could to prepare, and you know, it just didn't turn out for all of us. But you know, I have a couple teammates that made the team on the Greco side. But before that, you know, I felt like I was on a train and I was ready to go. So in 2019, I placed second at both US Opens that were in 2019. So there's one in April and there was one in December. And so I took second at 55. I lost to Jakara Winchester, who ended up being the world champion that year.
Yeah.
You know, she's a tough girl, you know, and she's my competition. So I look forward to wrestling her more in the coming years. And then I lost to Dawn Parrish, who I had beaten earlier that year in that nationals that I had lost to Jakara in. And I lost to her in the finals in December. So I made a national team, right, at 53 kilos or at 55 kilos. And I was ranked, I think, third at 53. And, you know, I was ready to go into Olympic year in 2020. And I was ready to go, and I was excited. And I was excited this year too. You know, I hadn't competed in over a year. And so it was just like, man, I can't wait to get on the mat and like wrestle other people other than the people I've been wrestling with. Because I mean, we have, you know, people in our room that are really, really good too. We have Whitney Condor, and we have Jenna Burkett and Megan Black, Alex Lyles, and we had Randy Belts as well, but she's a little bigger than me. And rolling around with them, you know, is awesome and everything. But, you know, I really missed having that different, you know, those different feels that we would get, like going to the OTC and being able to travel overseas and just feeling those people. But, you know, it is what it is. And I'm on to the next. We got nationals coming up in a couple weeks. But yeah, you know, I'm looking forward, because I feel like in 2018, I had a neck surgery that almost put me out. You know, I was 20 years old, 21 years old. You know, I was super young. Still am, sort of. I'm 24 now, but I was 21 and I was like, man, this could be the end of my career. That's pretty much what they told me. They were like, yeah, you know, this could make or break. Nobody knows. And I just kind of took that and I was like, well, I want to continue to go. You know, WCAP had just took me on and they had done so much for me already. And I just was like, man, I got to pay them back somehow. You know, this is black and gold. We're a team. We're a family, baby. You know, like I want to do something for them. So, you know, coming back after neck surgery and then doing what I did in 2019 really, you know, put a fire under my butt and was like, yeah, I'm ready to go. And I'm able to be at this level. So even with, you know, the issue with the neck injury, but I'm looking forward to, you know, the rest of 2021 and onward. You know, I feel like I can go another 2 cycles maybe.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, and it's interesting, right? Because now we're going to have a shorter amount of time between this Olympics and the next Olympics. So in some ways, well, in a lot of ways, I think that that's great for athletes, because those who are hoping to make the most of, you know, for lack of a better phrase, like the time they have left competing, who are not in the very beginning stages of their competing. I think that it's great that it's coming up again a little bit faster than normal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it takes all 4 years, right? Like to prepare. It takes a long time, more than 4 years to prepare for an Olympics, for an Olympic team trials. Like it's everything you did since you were this tall, you know, little kid. But no, I mean, you got to show up that day. That's all that matters. So
yeah. So tell me a little bit more about your relationship with WCAP. What makes it such a special place to be an athlete and to train? You know, the team overall is fantastic this year, you know, and the names that are coming out of the team are just amazing. And we're great at Olympic team trials. So tell us a little bit more about WCAP, what makes it so special to you, your experience there.
So WCAP is a program within the Army. Like you have to go through basic training and go through your AIT. So whatever job you decide to do, you have to go through that training. So you get a trade from that, right? And you're already getting paid a salary. And based on where you're at, like if you've taken any classes, if you have a degree, your pay scale is based on that, right? And you can rank up in the Army. There's I guess, promotions, right? And that happens through time, through leadership skills, like exponential leadership skills, and through school. And so that's awesome because everybody gets the same pay, no matter like the job, it's all based on your grade. So if you have if you're a doctor in the Army, you're probably an officer, right? Like you have to be an officer to be a doctor in the Army. And you have to have gone through the schools and everything, right? And if you're, say I'm a 42 Alpha human resource specialist, right? Like I do HR and that's my job, right? But my job is to wrestle. So that's all I have to do is to wrestle and to perform. And the great thing about that is I can do it all year long. And as long as I'm, putting up results, they're right there. They got my back, right? And when you have an injury, they got your back. They're going to take care of you because you get TRICARE, which is our healthcare system. You get all the benefits that you need to survive. Like I literally am carefree. I have my own home. I have my own car. Like I'm not worried about when the next meal I'm going to get is, because let's be honest here. Wrestling doesn't make money unless you are put up on the media as like this superstar. If you're a superstar athlete, like, and even then they don't get paid like that unless they're going, trying to get sponsorships, and sponsorships come and go, and it depends on if you're on the same level as those sponsorships. Like, I don't know, it's a very like iffy type of pay. And we do it because we love it, right? Like we do wrestling because we love it. But that's what's so great about the Army is like, I don't have to worry. And then I have people behind me, like my coaches, my teammates and everything, like I can trust them, and I think that's a big thing. Like when you can trust your coaches and when you can trust your teammates to be there for you and to cheer you on, I think that's the greatest thing. Like I know people that don't have family, real family, like blood, and this is their family type of thing. Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I've been here since I've been in Colorado since 2014. I was 17 years old when I moved out here. And 2.5 years later, the Army girls were like, hey, come and join us, we'll take care of you. Cause I was struggling as a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, 19-year-old. And then when I turned 20, I was like, yeah, I'm going to join. Like, I can't do this anymore. But I think that's the greatest thing about them. It's just like I can count on them. Like last night I had hosted a dinner for some of my teammates and some of my friends, and we had little tacos. I made some barbacoa and some chicken tacos dorados. So it was really, really good. Everybody had a good time.
Now I'm starving. Thanks a lot. Now I'm so hungry. That sounds so good.
I'll send you some.
There you go. So I think you hit on some interesting points, and I think that people would be really surprised. It's funny. So right around when the Olympics are going, you see commercials on TV from like Lowe's and Home Depot and these large corporations that brag about how they hire Olympic athletes who are training in the off years when they're not competing in the actual Olympics, that they hire those Olympians and everything. And I wonder if the general public steps back and thinks to themselves, wow, so you could be training to be an Olympic athlete and still need to work a completely separate, like 9-to-5 job, which, let's be honest, isn't normally bringing in $35,000 a year because of how much time you have to compete. You're still busy on weekends, you're still traveling. So like, I think that for athletes, it's just something that comes with the lifestyle, like you're saying, but for the general public, they have to be surprised. And you think back, like, all the way back to, like, I know this year in between sessions on ESPN for men's nationals, for NCAAs, they showed the Foxcatcher documentary. and talking about, the experience of being at the Foxcatcher facility and stuff. And so much of the documentary talks about how these athletes were barely scraping by or not scraping by at all financially, and how that problem right there set the stage for these guys to be completely dependent on somebody who could fund their lifestyle, that they could train, like you're saying, not worry about having a roof over your head, not worrying about where your next meal was going to come from. And it set the groundwork for a toxic, unsafe environment, because they knew that it was something that they wouldn't be able to do on their own. And I step back sometimes, especially when I think about our female Olympians, and I ask myself, how much of that has changed? How many women are desperate to find some kind of support or sponsorship financially, that they put themselves in situations they normally wouldn't, just because they know I can either sacrifice what I believe in and everything to work with this company or this person so that I can get financial support and be an Olympian possibly, or I can say, no, I'm going to try to do this on my own and never be able to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak on like how many, because I personally don't know like how many do, but I know that people do, and people go to the extreme lengths to survive. You got to. It's for your life, it's for your dreams. And it's sad to see that we as athletes do so much to fulfill a dream, and it may never come. The 0.0001% will get it, but it's the funding, it's the amount of availability for like RTCs. Like RTCs can't pay for everybody. Titan Mercury and NYC and Sunkist, they can do their best, but money runs out and the spots run out, and like if you had an off year that year, you're done.
Right.
And so it's like, it's hard to climb back from that. And I applaud everybody that has, and I just feel like this was like a no-brainer for me to do this. Like I was a CNA before, and I was going to school full time. I was, trying to survive and barely escape by. And even as a CNA, like I had my certificate from, I had earned it in high school. I wasn't making more than $11 being a caregiver an hour, and I was able to work at night and then go train in the morning and then go to school in the middle. Like I wasn't able to sleep.
Yeah.
And there's people doing this, like they're working 2-3 jobs and they have families. And it's sad to see that. And then you get this discrepancy in pay, and it's like, man, you're really just trying to screw me over, aren't you? Like,
yeah.
It's sad. And it needs to be fixed.
So now tell me about how Parity, which I'm being totally honest, I had not heard of up until you and I were getting in touch. So tell me about Parity and about your relationship with them. How did this come together, and what is Parity's like mission statement or its goal?
So Parity is ParityNow. Like you find it online, ParityNow, and they are a group that came together, and they pair athletes with sponsors. So with businesses that align with their intent. So if you are, for women's rights, for Black rights, for trans rights, for, LGBTQ, whatever the rest of the alphabet, it's just like, if you have that behind you and that's what you support, then they will pair you with groups that also support this. And you get a survey, right? Like everybody does this ParityNow. You go through and you do a survey and you get paired with this. Like it's definitely on the start. I feel like it's not like blown up, but it will. I feel like if brands come in and they're like, because it's not just athletes that sign up, brands sign up too. Like there's a sign up sheet right on the first beginning of the page for athletes and for brands. And we just need more brands to come in and be like, yeah, I want to be a part of this. I believe in this. So, and I believe like also female athletes as well, but we need more attention and I feel like the attention comes from media. Everything that you see on your Instagram post, your Facebook, it's all curated, to spark your eye, right?
Right.
And it's somebody putting it out there. So if we just put this out there and people see it, they're gonna be like, oh, wow, I'm interested. It's just that marketing tool needs to be, kind of tweaked a little bit so we get more eyes on it. And so we
Yeah.
have more following. But the way that we got into it, so we have a national team group chat, right? And they put it in the group chat and they were like, hey, this is a program for, female athletes to close the gap on the discrimination of pay. And so they gave us the link, and honestly, at first I was like, okay, so what do I do now? And
Yeah.
and so like somebody contacted me, actually, another athlete. She was a basketball player, and she was like, hey, I see that you hadn't like completely completed your account and everything. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know like what else was like to be done. But
Yeah.
there's people checking up on it. There's people that are like, hey, we need to continue pushing this thing. So once I got like through that, I was like, oh, okay. And then, they pay you for a little post here and there. And it's like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
And it's for a cause that I believe in. So
Yeah. So
that's how,
it's posting with a purpose,
yes.
to
And
get involved. And it's something that we are obviously, all of us are already doing, right? We already post things. And I think that what's so interesting about it, as I was like reading up on it, is I think a lot of us right now are hashtag activists, like we want to align ourselves and show that we are allies, and to support, whatever belief we feel like we're being called to support, or that represents us. And so we go in and we do the hashtags and everything, but there really doesn't feel like a next step, after we announce to everybody on our social media what it is that we're supporting. And maybe we donate, $5 here, $10 here, $100 there. But it's kind of like a one and done deal. And I think that what's so interesting is by becoming affiliated with ParityNow, you suddenly are continuing the work. Like it feels like, it seems like the next step after you say like, okay, I can hashtag things, I can post things, I can make donations here or there. Like now suddenly brands, especially small brands who are looking to say, like, who are looking at things and saying, I don't want to just post another Instagram post about our beliefs and what we support and how we are standing out or standing up against, violence toward a specific group of people or whatever. This is a way for them to really get involved, to get partnered with other people, and to build that belief system.
For sure. And I think like the main way to segue into that, like for people to help, because it's hard to like think of, okay, what can I do, what as a follower, or somebody that enjoys the sport of wrestling or the sport of whatever you enjoy,
Right.
what can I do to help? And I actually got a message on Instagram, this guy who has a young daughter and is hopeful to see change when she's older, so she can do whatever she wants to do and not be discriminated by it. He was like, what can I do to help? And I was like, shoot, that's a loaded question. I don't know. And so I had to like think on it, and I was like, you know what? Like, you can help by word of mouth, right? Like by pushing this yourself, your social media, your following, because then another person is going to be like, oh, okay, I see you. Like, you're a friend of mine. I like what you post, and look into it as well. Like, word of mouth is more helpful than we seem to like remember, because
Right.
now it's like, oh, I can see everything on Instagram, I can see everything on Facebook, I can see everything on Amazon, like everything's on the phone, everything's on. But when you're in an intimate like setting with
Yeah.
friends and with family, and you're talking about things face to face, it's like, oh, I can also get this out and tell you about it. And this is what I believe in, like sharing your interests and sharing your your beliefs is more intimate when it's face to face and when it's with friends. And if that can be pushed like that, I think that would be like a big way of helping. And like, hey, you should watch this with me. Hey, you want to watch this with me? Or you want to see this? Check this out. Like,
Yeah.
And I also believe like media, like I was saying, is how we decipher things. Like we're like, oh, okay, so this is what is true. There's no like truth to things. Like it's all opinion based, you know. And for some reason, somebody else's opinion is being imposed on everybody.
Right.
So when somebody's commentating on a wrestling match, it can be very different from a female's match versus a male's match. And I like to shut things off when I'm watching film, right? Like I don't even like to listen to the commentary because it can be very biased. It can be sexist. It can be, you know, just disgusting. And I don't want to hear like what they have to say. Honestly, I don't care.
Right.
And I want them to know that I don't care. So, but other people are listening to that and I care about that. Like what you're saying about me is degrading me and degrading other people who you don't even know them. You don't know who I am as a person. You don't know who they are as a person. And I feel like that needs to change.
Right. And I think too, it plays into the bigger machine. Like we have become, because of social media, we have become participants in the stories that are being told about different groups of people and individuals as well. And so what we choose to like or share or comment on builds a perceived truth about large groups of people, large swaths of people. A singular statement made about a female athlete during a match.
Stereotypes.
Suddenly plays into the bigger role of stereotypes. And then those things become those simple statements that are posted on Instagram or that are said during a commentary, you know, or like a color commentary in a match. Those become like convoluted facts. They become justification for what eventually becomes an athlete's paycheck. You know, you see it and it's like, well, I heard them say that, you know, this match was great, but it wasn't anything like these two men's matches. And, you know, the women's national scene is much different than the men's. And that's why you see some of these women with less experience winning nationals. And, you know, and it goes all the way around full circle into, well, the general public seems to think this because this is what's being shared or posted so much on social media. And since they're saying that you're less interesting or exciting to watch, now we don't need to pay you as much. And it's, so I think that one thing that I'm hearing when I'm listening to you is the power of those small interactions, whether it's in intimate social settings or whether it's online, the impact that they have when they're put together and companies are making decisions about who they're willing to show more time on, or, you know, like these kinds of things play a bigger part, and they affect your livelihood. You know, women, I was talking about this to either Olivia Shore or Michaela Campbell. I was talking to one of them about this, how when you're a female and you walk out to compete, no matter what the situation is, you are always representing a bigger idea. But if you're a man and you are walking out to compete, you are just representing yourself every time, even if you're part of a team. Like when LeBron James walks out and competes, he's just representing LeBron James. The end.
Yep.
You know,
not even his team. It's him.
Yep. But when, you know, you watch something like the Olympic team trials, these women who are walking out, you know, like a girl as young as Kennedy Blades is walking out there, or, you know, Macy Kilty is walking out there. And there is this pressure that's there of, okay, everything you do is going to determine whether or not we find value in women's wrestling. That's an unbelievable amount of pressure. And so these things all play such a bigger role. And eventually, once you get to, you know, your 20s or so, it starts to impact your paycheck if you're going to do this as a career.
And it impacts your mental health too. But, you know, like I was saying earlier, like you just start to not believe in yourself anymore. Like, man, am I really not this good? Like, I don't know, like, or am I this type of wrestler, or am I this, am I that? It's like, you can't listen to what they have to say, because the only truth is what you believe, right? Like your truth and my truth are two different things.
Mhm.
And, they might, end up meshing at certain points, but there's other things that we will disagree on. And the conversation that we disagree on, that's okay. We can have that conversation and come to, a consensus of like, okay, this is what we can, I'll agree to disagree,
Right.
and that's okay. And that's that, there's no need to like fight over it or to like, like be angry about it. It's like, okay, that's what she wants to believe. Her different, life lessons and different paths that she's taken, she believes it because of that. And I believe it because of this.
Mhm.
But the idea doesn't just stem with women's wrestling and men's wrestling. It's also within Greco-Roman wrestling and freestyle wrestling. And they showcase, okay, so this is a point. I was in the stands after watching the finals with my family, right? And I had two teammates that were about to make an Olympic team and be on the Olympic team. They had already qualified the weight, and they were on one side. And another, great match, Jordan Burroughs and Kyle Dake on the other side. So my teammates, Ellis Coleman and Alejandro Sancho, they were on one side for 67 kilograms, Greco-Roman, and then there was the freestyle for 74 kilograms for Kyle Dake and Jordan Burroughs. So Jordan gets upset, right? Like he lost, and he's a great wrestler, right? He's a legend. He's going to be a legend, forever, and one of the greatest of all time. And then we have, a Greco-Roman. The Greco-Roman is like the stepchild,
I was gonna say that, yeah,
of USA Wrestling, and
Yep.
I don't understand why. I train with these men side by side, and they train just as hard as any other athlete. Trust me, if not harder. And it's two of my teammates. So I'm like, man, one of my teammates is gonna be an Olympian, right? Like I'm happy for them. And it was sad, like to see how they had almost kind of shunned that match. I was there in like real life, right? Watching this, and it wasn't just, I don't know if it was on like the television or what, but they shunned that match almost.
Right.
And I felt so like my heart broke because Ellis took off his shoes and, was like, I'm done for now, like, I'm done here. And that's something that needs to be showcased.
Right.
And then Alex won the match, is going to go and compete at the Olympics at 67 kilograms. Like that's something to showcase. You have an Olympian. It's not just like, oh, I need to qualify the weight. I don't know, maybe I'll go, maybe not. No, these guys are going, and I just feel like that wasn't even looked at. Right. It was more of like, oh, this match has been so anticipated. Like it was a 3-1 match, Jordan got, taken down by Kyle Dake and he got a push out.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, big scoring match or anything. And it usually isn't. Like high level matches are, tight matches because you both know each other. You both, make little mistakes, if any.
Right.
But, it's just like whoever the media is like kind of highlighting.
Yeah.
But
and it was
that's what I saw.
It was difficult too. And so just as somebody who watched everything from home, you're right. There were lots of times throughout the trials where you would be watching a match and you would hear people applauding or something, or gasping or whatever, but you wouldn't see what was happening. And I was a little bit disappointed because I think that NBC really touted that they were going to provide the kind of coverage that like ESPN is finally giving to men's wrestling nationals. And so it was really difficult to know that like I had to have Peacock on my phone watching on that app, but then bouncing in and out to get different mat coverage. And then there was, NBC Sports was showing one thing. And it was so frustrating to still feel like as a viewer, as a paying viewer, you still couldn't quite control where your viewership was going at different parts of the match. Whereas we know for a fact that when ESPN did this coverage for men's collegiate nationals, they had the gridded box, they had like the 4 matches up at a time. And NFL Network, they are able to do this with the red zone. Like that technology obviously exists. And
Obviously.
so the fact that we aren't given more control as viewers to kind of show where our money is going and to show like, hey, I'm exclusively watching the Greco-Roman matches, or I'm exclusively watching the women's freestyle matches. It's frustrating. It is frustrating as a viewer. I think that we're moving in a right direction, but I think it's important to stay frustrated and impatient to make sure that we are continuing to get that kind of coverage. And I know that a lot of people were commenting on social media that one of the good things about the running of different styles of wrestling at the same time, like going back and forth between different matches instead of having a session devoted entirely to like one style of wrestling. I appreciate what people were saying, that it was great because it introduced people to different types of styles maybe they wouldn't normally see because they had to watch it to get to the next match. And I think that that is great, but there are definitely better ways to be covering wrestling to make sure that our viewership is representative, that we can show what it is that's really pulling us in as viewers.
For sure. And I feel like even the cards that they had like throughout the year leading up to this, I feel like they did a good job of like mixing it in, right? They were putting women on the card, and they were just like, one male match, and then we'll have a couple of female matches. And then like people were watching, through that card. They paid for the card and they watched, like we bought a few cards and watched, my teammate or my friend Erin Golston, she was on a few cards. And so we were at home watching her and watching the other matches, because like that's interesting too. Like I'm not saying men's freestyle is not interesting. I'm saying that we are all interesting, and we all have like this push behind us to be the greatest.
Yeah. Takedown Sports, which is located in New Jersey. It was started by Dave Cordoba, and he is a huge proponent of women's wrestling. He coaches women's wrestling and everything, and he has his own club. So they had I want to say it was like the East Coast Clash was the name of the bout, but it was like an RTC kind of battle between a couple of different RTCs on the East Coast. And it was so smart. They did I think they did like a co-main event, and it was a freestyle match and then a Greco-Roman match. So, and they had like Ben Provisor was in the Greco-Roman.
Oh yeah, it was a cage, right?
No, this one wasn't. But it was so smart because again, we're giving exposure to the different styles of wrestling that exist, and familiarizing people with it. So, and I even sometimes I feel like it's hard to choose your words correctly when you're talking about this, about how there are different styles of wrestling, and like women's versus men's wrestling. I feel like it's hard because people think they're saying the right things, but the people who are in those fields are frustrated because why are we still talking about those things? Like here, I just said introducing people to Greco-Roman, and it's like Greco-Roman, one of the oldest sports ever. Like,
it was the first style.
Yeah, so it's frustrating, and the same thing, like I get frustrated when the team trials were over and people were like, wow, the women's wrestling, wow, can I just say exciting? And I get that on one end of that, it's great because we're talking positively about women's wrestling. But on the other hand, I'm like, did you think it wasn't? Did you think that it wasn't just because it's a woman wrestling, that they don't do the same moves, that they don't wrestle in these like fast, aggressive styles and like really scrap, and the chain wrestling is beautiful? And do you think
and they put time into this? Like,
right. And so it's hard because I think that people, and myself included, have to be mindful of the way that we talk about things, because there are people who have been in this work, who have been in that area, who have seen what we're already starting to see. So to act like it's a statement of like an epiphany, like, wow, I didn't know women's wrestling could look like that. It shows like our own ignorance about the sport, and I think that we have to reckon with that if we're going to get to a point where every woman is getting paid the same as an athlete, especially, because it is such a media driven career now at this point where everything relies on sponsorships and, media coverage. So it's something I think that we are all responsible, at this point with being sure that we're mindful of how we're talking about the sports and the people competing in them to make sure that we're getting to a better point of fairness and equity when it comes to coverage, when it comes to pay, when it comes to the way that we talk about the sports. So I think there's a big responsibility. So now my question for you is, and you kind of hit on this a little bit, somebody is watching this and they want to know what to do next. What do I do next? They get done with this and they're like, oh, that's right. Now I'm like fired up. You know, what is the best next step for them to do to really become active in promoting fair pay and equity?
I mean, you gotta share, you gotta follow, you know, who you believe in. Like, I follow people not based on like, oh, I know them. Like, no, I follow them because I'm like, oh, I need to pull some, you know, things from their brain. Like, I need to, you know, pick their brain and see like, how do I become better? Right? Like, I follow nice, like big athletes, and I follow big brains, and trying to see like, okay, what can I do to create change? And so, like, just on a side note, I love like plants, and I want to be have my own farm and everything. Like, once I'm done, I want to be self-sustainable. So I follow a lot of self-sustainability, you know, pages and like programs, and like I try to buy local, go to butchers, whatever. I like to fish. I like to, you know, do my own thing. And I think that like whatever you are interested in, and whoever you're interested in, like learning from, ask them questions, you know, get into their brain and see like, hey, what do you think about this? Because, you know, they'll answer if it's, you know, something that's worth their time to answer. And if it's on something like this, I'll bet you $100 they'll answer you, you know. And you need, if you're a female athlete, you need to sign up on that ParityNow. If you are a brand that believes in this, you know, you need to sign up on this as well. And I think big ways of helping is what you're doing, you know, and you're hosting the show, and you know, being a big advocate for women's wrestling. And I hope that this grows, and I hope that you find like ways to grow it. And I'm gonna share this with my friends, and with my family, with my team, you know, and with my followers. I don't have like a whole bunch of followers, but like 2,500 people hopefully will see this and be like, hey, you know, this is interesting, and this is what I want to watch. And they're talking about good topics, you know, like I just want to hear what they have to say. So I applaud you for taking your time to do this as well. And I think people like you are awesome.
So I think that, you know, the big thing I hear from you is fully immersing yourself in people and brands that align with your values, goals, and beliefs is really the next step. And for some people, that might mean, you know, putting your money where your mouth is if you're in that position where you can support and help grow. And that for others, it might mean simply, you know, clicking share or following a specific page just to show that the support and the interest and the engagement is there.
For sure. You hit the nail on the head right there.
So, all right. Well, Areana, thank you. First off, thank you so much for, you know, putting yourself in a situation where you're representing us as an athlete, you're representing the country, you're serving the country. Just everything about you and, you know, your spirit, I can just tell it's about service and giving back and, you know, being a part of this social ecosystem that we have in all the right ways. So I'm so grateful for you taking time with us today.
No, thank you for having me. It was a great conversation. I enjoyed this. I hope we can do this again sometime soon.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll get this all taken care of and we'll get it pushed out in the next few days. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.